Welcome back to The Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. It's your business to be aware about what's happening on the political front. We have, of course, elections this week, but we also have elections coming up in 2014 that are rather significant. All types of offices from U.S. Senate on down that are up for consideration. And one of those seats is one of the most misunderstood, and that's Railroad Commissioner. And our guest from our last segment, Ryan Sitton, we also have Todd Randolph. He's still with us as well. But Ryan Sitton is a candidate for a Railroad Commissioner. Before we get started, I liked what you shared, Todd, just before we began. Share that with the audience. I thought it was great.
Yeah, you know, one of the things is, and when I get the opportunity to sit down with CEO and leadership of organizations, is it becomes an educational process for me. And in seeing where Pinnacle AIS is today and the success of the organization, it has a lot to do with leadership. And one thing that Ryan and I were talking about is that within the political system today, the leadership that we have can be somewhat more about themselves and more about the political office itself, and where we don't have true business people in some of those positions when we want to run our country from a business perspective. And Ryan and I, it was very enlightening in the conversation that we had. And so I just wanted to throw that out there at you, you know, from the perspective of being a business leader and jumping into this election for Texas Railroad Commissioner and what that means as an oil and gas person as well. Kind of share some of those thoughts that we talked about last week.
Sure. Well, first of all, let me qualify a little bit. You know, I actually believe that most people that get into public office genuinely want to do good things, and I think a lot of people who have served for a long time really try to do that. The question is about perspective. You want a good range of perspectives when you come into public service, so that you're looking out for the general well-being and the health of our nation and of our state and our local communities. We don't have a lot of business owners, true business owners that serve in office. And I think we bring a very unique perspective, particularly in a time like today where our economy is constantly sensitive. You know, we see up and down moves across our economic spectrum, and having someone who really has done the things in private industry to create jobs. As a friend of mine likes to say, someone who has signed the front of the check, not the back of the check, and understands the risks we take in putting capital out to develop new technologies, to hire employees and train them, understands those things so that we can really understand how government regulation or laws will impact the ability of businesses to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. By the way, Railroad Commissioner, for those who don't know, and it's very, very sad because you got all these people casting votes and they don't know, has nothing to do with railroads. It does have to do, though, with energy and the energy industry in a huge, huge way. It's one of the most important tactical positions when it comes to the state regulations surrounding energy. And unfortunately, and particularly the oil and gas industry, unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand this. And what really is unfortunate is that so often the candidates for Railroad Commissioner are using that as a platform to the next office they're running for. The state of Texas is one of the hardest states in the country to run for statewide office just because of how huge this state is. And so, you got state legislators out there, state senators who are trying to go to the next step up. And, they're quote, pro-energy. So they're going to go ahead and run for Railroad Commissioner just on the road to Attorney General or some other statewide office. And really, to be frank, it's rather pathetic. And so when you actually find people who understand the energy industry and have that background, I always, my ears perk up a little bit. And that's certainly the case with you, Ryan.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And that was a very non-endorsement you gave me there. That was great. You're right. In fact, I'll be the first professional engineer to serve as your railroad commissioner in over 60 years.
Yeah.
So when you look at someone who understands the industry, because we've got such amazing things ahead of us in the state of Texas, really. When you look at our potential to develop our natural resources in oil and gas. I mean, take gas, for example. Right now, we pay somewhere between $3 and $4 an MSCF for gas in the state of Texas. People in Europe are paying $13 and $14 an MSCF for gas. And we do very little to compete on a global scale in terms of our gas production today. And when you look down the road, I'm talking 5, 10, 20 years down the road, there is amazing potential for the impacts that the state of Texas will have on the global energy market because of our technology, our innovation, our hard work, and our just ability to get the oil and gas business done.
Yeah, absolutely. So I, for one, am excited to see someone with your credentials running for this spot. Todd, you have another question?
Yeah, I think from an enlightening perspective for the listeners out there and people that don't know this position, One of the things that you shared was about the various things that you will get to do and get to see as part of this role, and how that impacts decisions that are made by the commission. Share some of those things as far as the research and technology that you would be a part of.
Sure. Well, when you look at regulation, so what specifically do we regulate? The drilling, production, and transmission of oil and gas inside the state. And there are regulations at the Railroad Commission around how all of that is done. Everything from sealing of wellheads to pipelines and easements. And all of that is based on some sort of engineering, some sort of science. And so getting to see those things. How do we do those things? What technology is developing? How do we work that into our regulations to make sure that our industries are doing things the right way, at the same time have the flexibility to utilize latest and greatest methodologies so that our industry is second to none in the world? And so as your railroad commissioner, you get an opportunity to get plugged into those things. If we're developing some new technology around, concrete sealing to the annulus of a well, we can go out and explore those things, see that technology developed, watch how it works, and make sure we're integrating that into our regulations. And that's real powerful. You don't normally see government agencies do that. And particularly as an engineer, I'm excited to play that unique role for Texas.
Yeah, and what's interesting from that, again, back to the perspective of you having that engineering background, is that, when a politician who's a responsible politician gets elected to an office like that, although, my question is if you're a responsible politician, why don't you have experience in that office before you run? But anyway, at least a responsible politician will ask for impact statements and things like that. You intuitively know what the impact is before you even look at one of these bills. And to me, that's just extraordinary. That's the problem with Washington, D.C. today, is the vast majority of these morons are attorneys who are in the business of destroying people's businesses, is what they did for a living before they got into Washington, D.C. And so to ask them to figure out what kind of impact it has, it's like, who cares? What we care about is risk aversion. And we wonder why America is limping along technologically and economically. Is a lot of it has to do with that culture that we have of politicians who don't know what the heck they're doing.
Well, I will say across the board, I want to go back to this. I think it is one thing to say I'm running for office, or someone wants to serve in office because they want to have a positive impact. And even though I know that we do see challenges with people knowing the job, I like to think that they all have the right thing at heart when they want to go serve. But you're right. I think it's a great opportunity for us as citizens to look and say, who is qualified for the job they're doing? As if I was hiring an employee. Say, show me your background. Tell me how you're going to do this job. How are you going to serve us, the citizens, and our industries most effectively? Is a great part of our election process. It's basically like interviewing someone to take a job for you.
Well, having had consulted God knows how many political campaigns, and having had worked as an aide to a U.S. senator, I think my cynicism is well deserved. So I maintain that cynicism with delight. All right, Todd Randolph, thanks so much for bringing Ryan Sitton with us. Todd Randolph, he's over at usi.biz. Also do want to mention Ryan can be found at ryansitton.com. That's RYANSITTON.com. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
When we come back, much more for you. Do want to remind you, best content here shows up over there at usdailyreview.com, and this is The Price of Business.
Mm-hmm.